Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with my top palette picks for summer. I'm going to talk about the top 5 palettes that I think are most suitable in my collection for summer. I'm trying to get enough kind of variety in the palettes that I picked and not just pick super like orangey palette or like, you know, super neutral or colorful, or like I just try to get a brief kind of overview. Oh yeah, just give you kind of bigger selection with the palette that I chose. So I'm just going to jump straight into the first palette, but before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just jump into the first palette. So the first palette I have to talk about is one that I reach for mainly in summer, and that is my Aha Honey palette from Colourpop. Colourpop isn't my favorite formula anymore. I definitely have way better palettes now, and I have actually decluttered quite a lot of my Colourpop palettes, but I wanted to include this in this video because the time of year that I reach for yellows most is definitely 100% summer. My palette looks slightly different because I have taken out the pressed glitter in the center and replaced it with a bit more kind of an orangey toned yellow. Like, I mean, it is kind of like an orange, but it has like a golden shift. It's right there. So yeah, it's definitely yellow leaning, but it's a bit more orange than the other shades in the palette. That gives you a bit more variety, but I think you still get the point of the palette. I wouldn't say I reach for yellow all the time in summer, but I definitely love a bright yellowy look in summer. And again, I can't really think of any other season I would reach for like fully yellow looks. I like incorporating yellow in like both spring and autumn, but would I do it in winter? Probably not, but I like incorporating yellows all year round, but in summer is when I'd go for full yellow looks, and this palette is great for that. Again, Colourpop isn't my favorite brand, but I do like the 9-pan or like the monochromatic palettes from them, because if you are looking for yellow tone palette, you have this one. If you're looking for blue tone one, you have the what's it called, you have the Blue Moon palette. If you're looking for a green one, you're Just by Luck, and so on. So they definitely have like those monochromatic palettes that are really good for if you want a specific type of look, and that is why I'm including this palette. The next palette I have to talk about is an Anastasia palette, and this is definitely one of the palettes from them that I feel like isn't talked about too much, and that is the Amrezy palette. I love this palette. It's a really pretty one. I have a few pans in here, so you can see, and yeah, it's a nice palette. The reason why I included this as one of my top favorite summer palettes is because you have like those warm toned neutral tones like here in the middle. You do have a bit more kind of deeper shades here in the end, but I feel like you can still use them in summer to kind of deepen up looks. But they would also take you from like summer to autumn in the end of the summer months. But the main reason why I have this included is because it has those like pops of color here and there. You have like this really like fiery kind of bronzy orange shade right here, which is like the epitome of like a summer shade in my opinion. But you also have some other shades, like this purple here is really stunning, and then this blue right here is a type of blue that I love reaching for in summer. I just love that like all over my lid for like a more bold look. And that's like the perfect type of blue that I reach for in those occasions. You also have like a really nice sparkly shade, and yeah, I think this overall is a really stunning palette. You can easily incorporate, like, you can easily make those more kind of everyday looks in here, but you also, like I said, have those pop of colors that you can pair with the neutrals. So I really love this one, and it's definitely a summer palette for me. The next palette I have to talk about is the Tribe palette from Jules Place. This one, I think some people might argue is more of an autumn palette, but for me, I definitely reach for this most in summer, and that is because it is like a bit more kind of brighter colors. So yes, green, rusty kind of tones, oranges are all shades that I reach for in autumn as well, but the greens that are in here are just really bright. Like, this is the like lightest green, and you can see how bright that is right there. The other green as well, like these two shades right here, you can see like they're just really bright tones, and that is why I think this is a really nice summer palette, because you can create those really bright tones, but then you also have like those kind of fiery orange shades, which are very typical for summer for me. These two shades right here, maybe even this like rusty shade down here, like, I don't know, this corner is very much like leaning into autumn, but it is kind of late summer, early autumn, and I feel like it still goes into the summer vibes. I don't reach for these two greens down here too often. I do sometimes to deepen up the other greens in this palette, but you have so many other options. This shade here is like almost like an iridescent shade. This shade here looks like a bronze, but it has like a greenish shift to it, and it's absolutely stunning. It's super sparkly as well. And yeah, I just love this palette a lot, and it is Definitely my favorite palette from Jules Place. I have decluttered all but this one and the Magic Mini palette. And the Magic Mini palette I do not like as much as this one. And the formula here is amazing, so I definitely recommend you pull this palette out if you have it in your collection for some summer looks. The last two palettes that I have are both from Natasha Lenona. The first one I'm going to start with is probably the most like typical summer palette that I have, and that is my Natasha Lenona Sunrise palette. This one just has those tones in it that I think of when I think of summer palettes. Like you have those really bright kind of orangey yellowy tones right here. You have some red, kind of more burgundy like sunset tones. Like, I mean, I say burgundy, but it's still like it has like some brightness to it. It's right there. You also have some more kind of lighter shimmers here to build looks with. You have some purples here that goes really well with those sunset looks, and overall this is just a beautiful summer palette. You can build those like really kind of smoky like sunset looks like I mentioned, but you also have like a few lighter shades like in this corner. Like this peach shade here is absolutely stunning. This one looks quite light in the pan, but it does come off a bit deeper on the skin, so definitely works as a transition shade still. And I really love this palette. I definitely would reach for this loads in summer, and it's actually currently in my deck of panning with the goal of like no pan left behind, but I would definitely reach for this way more than that project this summer. Then the final palette that I have to talk about is just a classic in my collection. It's one of my favorite palettes in my collection, and that is my Natasha Lenona Gold palette. This is a palette that I could definitely use all year round, but I wanted to include it as a summer palette because this is definitely quite warm toned. You have those like really warm golds like this one right here. Like it is so like warm tone gold. You can see it there on my finger. Even the shade below it, which might look quite cool toned next to it, if you just look at it by itself, it still is very warm toned. Then you have like obviously more kind of cool tone shade as well over in this corner, but overall this is just a really nice warm tone kind of gold palette. Additionally as well, you have those kind of blue shades. These are a bit kind of more muted than the blues I like wearing in summer, but I definitely like wearing those type of shades again. So I definitely think this is a palette that is perfect for every day, especially in summer, but all year round to be honest. But if I would have to pair this with a season, it would be summer, and that's why I wanted to include it in this video, because I love this palette so much and it needed to have a feature in one of this series this year. So that is the last palette that I wanted to include in this video. So those are the top 5 palettes that I have for summer. Please let me know down below what your top picks are for summer. Let me know if you disagree with me on any of these palettes. Let me know, yeah, what your top pick would be and what you're looking forward to reaching for the most in the upcoming months. And other than that, I really hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye guys.